togetherness time, and I'm guessing you're going to come across at least a few interesting family members and friends. So we're here to help you pre-plan for these tricky interactions with ready-to-go responses. So dealing with your opposite, the unsolicited advice giver, the drain, and the disrespectful person will be a breeze. So listen in. We're going to talk about you're at Thanksgiving dinner, and then you come across your opposite. So this could be your political opposite, spiritual, religious opposite, lifestyle opposite. Like, it's just the person who's just not going to see things eye to eye with you. How do we respond gracefully to someone like this, where it's not confrontational, but we're also not engaging in the conversation that doesn't feel comfortable? And, and this could be like that pushy person who's, asking you too many questions, what's next in your life. But, usually there's a gap in perspective, and you're just not meeting in the middle. So, and you can't find that common ground. So what do you think about that?
It's all about boundaries. And this has been a huge area of personal learning for me over the years. And if you're not used to standing up for yourself, or, if someone is really pushing you, you tend to give in. It's okay to change that. It's hard. People get used to these patterns of behavior, but it can be done. So we are going to talk about specific boundaries and specific things that we can say that are non-threatening and that diffuse emotion in conversation. And you are going to get all of this printed out. So this will be kind of a nice little script, if you will, for you to address, to take and address to your own situations accordingly, because we each deal with different circumstances and personalities. But definitely, I think like dealing with your opposite is really, really difficult. There are some specific things that we can say that will diffuse this. So I hear what you're saying. Notice I didn't say I agreed, but I hear what you're saying. Let's talk about something else. You could also just change the topic, especially if someone drops what I call a trauma bomb on the conversation, just something that nobody wants to talk about and you don't know what to say. Oh gosh, I'm sure you'd like to talk about something happier. What else is new in your world? And I also want to say it's okay to have a note card. This is legit a note card that I had with some statements to help me in a situation where I felt like I needed to have some things on hand. So there's no judgment. Like, write down what you need to be prepared. There's also some, yeah. You know what? There's no shame. I also put it on my phone sometimes in the notes section.
Yeah, it's good to have those. It's hard to think of them in the moment, but if you've written it down, you've thought about it, it's much more likely to surface when needed. A while back, you taught me about the gray rock technique. I love this one because it's hard to do, but it can be done. Tell us how that goes.
It is really hard to do, but it is highly effective. And basically what the gray rock technique is you kind of just make yourself into a gray rock. You're kind of boring, non-committal. You say things like, I understand. Okay. And what happens over time is people will lose interest in that conversation and naturally move on to someone who will give them more of what they're looking for. And so just being a plain gray rock, someone shared with me, they said, only invest in a conversation what you can afford to lose. So when we share information, personal information that we care about with others, that is a sort of an internal boundary where we're actually giving people information about us that could be used in pleasant ways or unpleasant ways. And so the plain gray rock is really a technique that's reserved for people who you just really, really struggle with, who don't respect your no. But those are some ways to just kind of make yourself small, uninteresting, and it actually does work. So try that out with your opposite.
Love that. And I have to say, sometimes during the course of a conversation, I can just feel like if it's politics or religion, like I can just feel the emotions just coming up and I just need to get out of there. And that's
Absolutely.
okay too. So
there's so many ways to find an exit, right?
Yes, my favorite, because it's a basic universal human need, is a bio break. Say you need to use the restroom. No one needs to know if you really do. It's okay. It's a great place to take a few deep breaths. If you need to recalibrate and, or you need to visit your card. Oh yeah, what do I need to say in that moment to end this conversation? The bathroom is just a great place to go without judgment, to just recalibrate. You can also offer to walk people's dogs or watch or entertain or play a game with the kids. One that you could do is feign or for real have a muscle cramp and say, oh, I need to get up and walk around a bit. For me, I can't sit for very long without that happening. So that's a legit excuse that I use. Getting outside to get a breath of fresh air is also so healing and rejuvenating. So, we forget in the moment when we feel trapped in these conversations, but we really, just getting up and changing our scenery can really change everything.
I love that. And as an introvert, sometimes even when it's not an uncomfortable situation, I just need to get out of there and just like have some alone time. So I appreciate that. And we're going to share some resources. So now I want to move us on to this guy, right? You all know this one. You've got one in your family, I am sure, the unsolicited advice giver. You really should get married. Oh, you just got married. When are you going to have kids? You should get out more. You should try this diet. Or what do you mean you're tired? It's all in your head, So these are the people that like just pour on the advice. And you actually didn't ask for it. So what are some ways to deal with that? Because I often come across this.
This is a tricky one. And this is why I did all of this research to kind of find what experts recommend. And, they're beautiful. I appreciate your input. Thank you for your input. I hear what you're saying. Notice, again, not necessarily agreeing. I'm not prepared to do that right now. I'll discuss that with my care team. I use that one all the time. That acknowledges the suggestion in a very beautiful way, but what I do with it from there depends on me. That's my choice. So what do you think about those?
I think I like those because none of them are confrontational and they feel good. Like I don't have to feel uncomfortable saying them. You're acknowledging what they said. And then it's like, we're done. I will do something about what you just told me. Right. Without like saying, I can't get married, or I don't want to have kids, or whatever, the reason, whatever it is. So I love that. So next time you are in that situation, make sure you have some of these in your back pocket. And then I got another one for you guys. The perpetual drain. And, this term came from you, Katie. I want you to tell me about who these people are and what we need to do when we're around them.
Yeah. There's so many experts on the topic. I know Brene Brown has done a lot of work on this. But basically we each have energy. And when we come into a situation with, in community with others, you can feel it. And we do have to be responsible for our own energy that we bring to a space, but it's not always easy. But I want you to think for a moment, we probably all know someone who is what we call a fountain. When we spend time with them, they energize us, they lift us up, we leave the conversation just feeling great. We're usually smiling, and they're really fun people to be around. We also, on the other hand, probably know someone that's more of a drain. And sometimes we end up leaving interactions with them feeling depleted or worn out, or you can just feel the exhaustion. And this doesn't mean, I really want to call this out. This doesn't mean we have to live in a place of toxic positivity or avoid addressing the very real hardships that we face in our lives. But those types of conversations are most productive when both parties agree to having them, and not when they're thrown at you unexpectedly at a celebratory holiday event.
Okay, so how do you go about dealing with someone who kind of goes into that dark place that you're not ready to go to?
I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm really sorry you experienced that. I'm sorry to hear that. Compassion is a nice way to meet someone who's in a dark place. Did anything good come out of the situation? oftentimes we're able to see that hardships can transmute almost into a gift. And, it's just really important to be thinking about maybe something good came out of it. It's also okay to say, I'd rather not discuss this now. And if they push at that point, that's when you use one of the other exit strategies to just remove yourself.
Yeah, and we've put our favorite responses here, but if you go into the document you're going to get tomorrow, you'll get some other ones that are slightly more spicy. So they're kind of fun to read through. And then you pick the ones that feel most comfortable to you.
Yes.
So, okay, I've got another one. This is for someone who engages in conversation that feels disrespectful, makes you uncomfortable. This could be someone who tells inappropriate jokes, says something racist, or something just unkind about somebody else behind their back. And here's something that's hard for me is, somebody tells a racist joke and everybody laughs, and you don't laugh maybe, but you also didn't speak up, right? So this is a hard one for me to figure out, like, how do I not just sort of acquiesce and, stay silent? Because I feel like that's almost as bad as laughing along, So how do you deal with inappropriate conversations?
I'm so glad that you mentioned silence, because it is a tool that they recommend, but you're right that sometimes it also inadvertently signals that we might agree. And so it is really important, I think, this day and age, that we do address these inappropriate comments, whether they be racist, ableist, or otherwise derogatory in nature. And so, simple statements like, this conversation makes me uncomfortable, or that joke makes me uncomfortable. Can we aim to be respectful in our conversation? As far as I'm concerned, this topic is off the table. There's also this really beautiful thing that is, I want to hear more about you, which experts recommend as magic words to kind of shift the focus back to the other person. So don't forget about that. It's a helpful tool.
Yeah. And anytime you can ask people about themselves, that's sort of like a confidence boost to them anyways. And so it doesn't feel like a negative transition. So I like that a lot. And then I wanted to ask you about something you had said about Buddhism's 3 gates approach when you're about to prepare a response that's going to come out of your mouth. Like, what is that all about?
I love this principle. It is so simple and so powerful. Really, it is, before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And, this is, when I first learned about this, I started applying that to my social media usage. I stopped commenting about politics. I stopped commenting about a lot of things because I just thought, it may be true, it may even be kind, but is it necessary? And so sometimes by choosing not to say something ourselves, we actually impact how the conversation moves forward. So I think it's a great way to kind of just gauge what we're saying. And also you can use it to gauge what other people are saying too. And you can even call it out and say, are you sure that that's true? Mm-hmm. Is that necessary? Is that kind? So I love that real simple little framework.
Yeah, it's a great filter and just a wise way to choose what you say.